Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Millennials in Charge, where we unpack the adult experience one honest conversation at a time. I'm your host, Lex the Millennial, and today we're talking about not falling in love with people's potential. Now, a lot of us have been there, right? I mean, believing in someone's potential, seeing what they could be, and holding on to hope that one day they'll just rise to the occasion. But here's the thing, the potential that you see in others is not real. It is a projection of what you would do in their position. So today, we're breaking down why falling in love with potential can be dangerous. Why does it even happen? And then how to shift your mindset to see someone for who they truly are, not for who you hope they become. So, what does falling in love with potential even mean? Because I think we all have potential, and I think we all hope to reach our greatest potential one day. So, when you see it in others, it's kind of easy to like romanticize it and say, oh, this is who they are. Like they can just be this great person versus who they're presenting right now. So, falling in love with potential is when you're more attached to who someone could be rather than who they're presenting. You see their talents, their intelligence, their charm, and you assume that one day eventually they'll reach this higher version of themselves the same way you're striving to reach that higher version of yourself. This happens a lot in romantic relationships, but it also can happen in friendships, even in work dynamics or family relationships. We do this because it's a projection. I mean, you're seeing them through your own lens, that effort, that ambition, that discipline that you would apply. And I think most of us are just hoping for the best. So when you do see someone's potential, you're kind of like, okay, I could see this going somewhere. I think when you get into new things, meet new people, you're kind of like, okay, I can see this being a great friendship. I can see this being a long term relationship. I can see this being a good work dynamic. But that kind of hope versus reality, we've taught ourselves to believe in people, rooting for the underdog and to be patient with others. But patience isn't the same as waiting indefinitely for somebody to change. I think I told you guys before, like we can't change people. People only change when they want to. So I don't care how good looking, how attractive, how much an amazing person you are that you feel like you'll just rub off on people. People change when they want to change. So that potential that you might see, if they're not ready to tap into that, you might need to take a step back and kind of reflect on what they are actually showing you versus what you're hoping and praying for in the future. Another reason why we tend to fall in love with potential is because the emotional investment, right? Like the more time, the more love, the more effort you give to someone or anything for that matter, it's harder to accept that it may never be what you imagined it to be. And that's scary because I think the older I get, the more I realize how valuable my time is. When we were younger, we might have thought, like, again, if I just had money, right? Money would solve all my problems. But you realize that your time is the true currency. What you give your time and energy to matters. So when you're just, when you're involved with any human being, again, romantically or friendship wise, you do give, you try to give your all and you have that emotional investment, and then if it doesn't work out, you kind of feel like, oh, I wasted my time. And I had to grow from that. I used to feel like that. I used to feel like, oh, that was a waste of my time. Like, why did I, talk to this person for X amount of time? And I could have been doing something else. Like, or if I would have knew that it would end like this, I wouldn't have even engaged. And we say that, but I don't know how true that is. I used to always be like, Lord, just get me to the end. Like, give me a peek at the end so I know if I should even go into something like this. But that's the risk with anything. Like, you're taking a risk and you're putting yourself out there, whether it's business, friendship, you're taking a risk. I think you just have to consider how valuable is this risk to you. How much are you willing to sacrifice? How much of your time are you willing to give? And even if it doesn't work out, because again, people come for reasons or seasons, and if it doesn't work out long term, will you be okay with that? So once you have that emotional investment in something, you kind of have a fear of letting it go. Sometimes it's easier to cling to the hope rather than face the truth that that relationship, romantic, platonic, or professional, is not fulfilling you. Letting go used to be so hard for me. I like once I meet somebody and I feel like we're friends. I'm like, okay, like we loyal to the soil. You know what I mean? Like I used to think that people came into my life and like I wanted them to stay, especially if it started off well. But I had to learn, like learning that people come for reasons and seasons is valuable. I had to learn that I would hold on to people even though they no longer served a purpose in my life. And at that point, you're just surrounded by emptiness. Like you don't need to have all these people around if they don't serve a purpose. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to learn, just learning to let people go. And then, especially in intimate relationships, like if you've ever read Relationship Goals by Pastor Michael Todd, he talks about like soul ties, and that struck me so hard. Like, I used to feel like, oh, I could be friends with my exes, right? And some people do feel that way, but honestly, you can't. I remember my cousin told me something. He said, you can't be something with someone that you never were. So if you started off trying to talk to somebody romantically, you can't then just switch and be like, "Oh, we friends though." Specifically if it became an intimate relationship, and that's just because now you guys have that soul tie, and now when you bring people around, it can be so it's just one of those things where you have to learn to let go. And learning to let go is hard. Again, I if I rock with you, I rock with you, and if I don't, I don't. And I just really that was so hard for me. Like I literally lost one of my best friends of 20 years, and that was hard because she was like the longest friend I had, but I had to realize that she was not showing up for me the way I was showing up for her. And letting her go was so hard because I think I was in love with her potential, the potential that one day she's going to show up and she's going to be that great friend I need her to be. And I think a couple instances happened where like she didn't show up for my college graduation and she told me she would, and then she didn't show up for I think the biggest one was my wedding. So that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. She did not show up for my wedding that she wanted me to have, and I got married during COVID. So I didn't even want to have a wedding. And she was like, "No, you're gonna have a wedding, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that." And she did like help me go through and plan and organize and stuff. And then she just didn't show up because then she was like, "Oh, well, actually, I'm worried, but I made everyone get COVID tested." Like, I don't feel like there was a valid reason for her not to have shown up. And that for me, like, after being friends for so long, like, if you can't show up on the one day I need you to show up, even if you wear a mask and everybody did wear a mask, I was just kind of done. I was like, I'm no longer have rose colored glasses on, and I can see truly that I'm your friend, but you're not my friend. I don't think she never was my friend, but I think I was just more of a friend to her than she was to me. And I used to tell her that all the time, but it was something that even though I knew it, I just was like, but no, like that's my girl. Like she know all my secrets, not all of them because I don't tell everybody all my business, but she knew a lot about me. So it was like very hard to just be like cut it off, but I did. Like I and that was the first time I think that I had cut somebody so close to me off just so abruptly. Like I removed her from social media, her family. Like I was like, I want nobody in my business that associates with you, no contact, because I really just needed to cut that off. I was so hurt by that. So said all that to say, how do you know if you're falling in love with someone's potential instead of loving them for who they are? Because with that relationship, I thought I was just loving her for who she was, but there was a piece of me, there was always a piece of me that hoped that one day she would grow up and be who I was being to her, and it just never happened. So, to recognize it, I think you have to ask yourself, if this person never changed, Would you still be happy with them? If the answer is no, you're in love with the idea of them and who they could be, and not the reality of what they're showing you. The risk of falling in love with potential is that oftentimes you'll ignore the red flags. You'll turn those red flags green real quick and just be like, nah, it's fine. Believe in someone's potential so much that you excuse their bad behavior or their poor decision making because you assume that they'll grow out of it or they'll do better when they're ready. For example, staying in a relationship with someone who keeps making empty promises about changing. And when you do that, sometimes you often invest more than you receive. I think we all want relationships built on reciprocity. You want someone to show up for you the way you show up for them. You want someone to love you the way you love others. You want someone to respect you the way you respect others. So when you're just pouring your energy into their success, encouraging them, supporting them emotionally, maybe even financially or mentally, then you only realize that they don't even put that same effort into themselves. Hard truth, if someone isn't actively working toward their own growth, your belief in them will not change that. It won't. It will not change a thing. And by doing that, you end up delaying your own happiness. You keep waiting for the day when this person will arrive at their fullest potential. But in the meantime, you're left unfulfilled. Years can pass and you can still be waiting on someone to become this version of themselves that they're just not willing to be. I've seen people, in 15-year relationships just never gotten married. And again, do what works for you. That's fine. But if marriage is on your radar, why would you sit in a situation for years knowing that you want marriage? And that's because you're in love with the potential of this person and you end up just like, eventually it happened. And now you've invested so much time, it's hard for you to let go. I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret. It shouldn't take you longer than 18 months to 2 years to know if you want to be with somebody. Okay, so if you're dating for like a year and a half to 2 years, that person should know whether or not they want to take the next step with you. I think, like, with my husband, we got engaged probably after like a year and a half of dating, and we got married like 6 months after that. I think it was 5 months, but 5 or 6 months after that. And because I had previously been engaged, I was dating to marry. I'm like, this is my trajectory. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I hope to do. And we kind of had that conversation, and he's like, let's build a friendship. Let's, see how it goes. But he also was clear that that was also his trajectory and what he was hoping to do is date to marry. So there was no question. There was no, oh, potential. I knew his intentions and he knew mine. So we weren't going to waste each other's time if we just saw that this wasn't going to work. So what if you see potential in someone, but they're actually making progress? Support is great, but don't confuse potential with actual effort. Are they making consistent, self-motivated changes? Or are they just doing enough to keep you around? Some people can just talk you in circles for days, and you really have to take inventory and make sure that the effort is consistent and they're not just doing it to keep you around. Sometimes there's instances where, you know, someone might start out giving flowers in the beginning of a relationship and then they fall off and then you bring it up and they get back on and get you flowers every week. But then it lessens. Now it's every 2 weeks. Now it's once a month. Now it's every 3 months until you bring it up again and it's a problem. So you have to realize when people are giving you consistent changes that they actually want to change versus just trying to string you along as long as they can. So how can we see people for who they are and not who we want them to be? You have to pay attention to patterns and not promises. What people say means nothing if their actions don't align. I always say love is an action word. You can't just tell me you love me. You have to show me you love me. Your actions have to speak it. You can't just say I love you and then you're physically, emotionally abusive. That's not love. You can't say you love me because those actions don't align with love. You have to ask yourself, have they shown real, lasting progress, or are they just good at talking about change? We have to stop overcompensating for others. And if you're always the one motivating people, pushing them to do better, or making sacrifices so that they can thrive, take a step back. Take a step back and see what they'll do for themselves. The true reality check is if someone truly wants something, they'll take action on their own. You know, your motivation, your pushing, your sacrifices, they'll be appreciated. But if they really want something, they're going to push on their own. I've even had to do this with family members. You know, I am a jack of many trades and, you know, my family relies on me for a lot, you know, for travel, for just planning, just different things. And I have my own family and I had to take a step back and say, you know what, I can't be everything for everybody and no one for myself. I just could not do that. So I had to take a step back and just see what people are really willing to do on their own. And some of my family members showed up for themselves. I was so proud. I was like, wow, I didn't even know you were going to do it. But I was proud when they showed up for themselves. Some didn't. And that's okay too. But I had to realize that that's not my cross to bear. I can't be everything for everyone else and nothing to myself. It's just one of those things you can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to take a step back with those people and make sure that you're not just pouring and pouring and pouring. Accept the truth, even when it's hard. You can't change people. I'm going to say that again for my people in the back. You can't change people. You can inspire, you can encourage and support. But if they don't want to change, nothing you do will make a difference. You have to know that nothing you do will make a difference because people won't change unless they want to change. And accept people for who they are today, not who you hope they'll be in 5 years. So how do you let go of the idea of someone's potential? You have to shift your focus to who they are right now. Instead of fantasizing about what could be, who they could be, write down what is. Be brutally honest. Then ask yourself, is that enough for you? I mean, you really have to take inventory of where you are in that relationship. And if they never change, are you okay with that? If the answer is yes, good for you. If it is not, you might want to reevaluate. So, how do we make healthier choices in our relationships? Romantic, platonic, professional, or otherwise? We need to look for people who show and not just tell. Instead of being drawn to potential, focus on those who demonstrate ambition, integrity, and effort without being pushed to do so. Focus on someone who not only tells you they're going to do something, but follows through on that. Not first focus on someone who not only tells you they love you, but they follow through on that with their actions. Focus on the job or the career or the people or the friend group that not only says they support you, but they show you that they support you. We need to set standards and not just expectations. Standards are what you require in a relationship, while expectations are what you hope will happen. Don't lower your standards for someone's potential. And before y'all jump on me, we will talk about standards and expectations in detail in a later episode because I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts. That's all I'm going to say. We have to learn to walk away when necessary. I have only within the last 10 years learned to walk away when necessary. I think before I used to just wait on something to happen, you know. I told you with that friend, it had to be a last straw to break the camel's back. Like it just had to, versus me just earlier than that, just being like, you know what? You're not who I need you to be, and I don't think you can be, and that's okay. If you realize that you're holding on to a version of someone that doesn't exist, you have to let them go. Staying attached to potential keeps you from finding real and fulfilling connections. Let me give y'all an example. I told you guys I was previously engaged. Probably right after we got engaged, I kind of realized that over the course of our relationship, we had grown apart. I kind of also realized that we were no longer equally yoked. And I think I was just holding on to it because I had invested so much time. There was so much emotional investment. My family was invested. His family was invested. There was just so much time, so many things that transpired that I just could not just walk away. I was like, it'll get better. It'll fix itself. One thing about marriage, it's work. So even if you think your relationship is work, marriage is even more work. So, don't take that lightly and really think about it. I always feel like some people are just wanting that wedding, but really marriage is work. So with that being said, I thank God for saving me from that situation that I did not marry that person because we were no longer on the same trajectory. And just, I was kind of holding on to who he used to be versus who he was in front of me, who he had been presenting. And I think that's why God let it unfold the way he did. Like there was infidelity and then I was forced to walk away because I wouldn't pick up and just leave knowing what I knew. So just be mindful. Sometimes be mindful that sometimes if you won't walk away on your own, God will definitely show you what he needs to show you and force you to pick up your things and leave. And thank God for that. I think with that situation, like I really learned discernment. I learned to pray for discernment about the people in my lives because I do always want real and fulfilling connections with people. Even in my friendships, like again, people can be there for a reason or a season. They can be a blessing or a lesson, and that's okay. But you need to realize that you need to walk away when necessary. So, how can you move on from someone that you believed in for so long? First, you have to give yourself grace. You have to give yourself grace. That's part of meeting yourself where you are. That is just, you have to give yourself grace. Don't be hard on yourself. Nobody's perfect. You have to give yourself grace. It's not wrong to believe in people. It's not. It's only harmful when it keeps you stuck. It's fine to believe in people. I believe in my husband. I believe in him, but it's only harmful when it keeps you stuck. Take the lessons and use them to choose better moving forward. That's it. You just take your lessons and you keep moving forward. You know better, you do better, right? So now that you know how to move forward, you do. Now that you realize that you're not going to keep explaining away red flags, turning them green, making them yellow, blue, purple, you're going to stop ignoring red flags. You're going to let people show you rather than tell you. You're going to stop overcompensating for people and making excuses for their behavior, because one thing we all need is accountability. So hold people accountable for the things that they say they're going to do. So I want to leave you guys with this. Remember that seeing potential in someone is not the problem. That's not the problem. Expecting them to live up to it when they're not willing to is. Hoping that they change, trying to force them to change, it's not going to happen. People show you who they are every single day. Believe that and not the fantasy. We've all heard it. When people show you who they are the first time, believe them. Believe them. Some people are good at wearing masks, but the thing about masks is like they do slip. They do eventually come off. So the first time you see that mask slip, believe it. That's who they are. The way they reacted to a certain situation, that's who they are. Believe them. And if you're okay with what you see, that's fine. But if you're not, believe what they're showing you and reevaluate and pray for discernment, because we can easily fantasize any situation. Oh, this about to be my travel buddy. Like, me and her, we gonna travel all of this time. Oh, I could see him being my future husband. I could see him being a good dad. All the things. We can fantasize all day long. We can easily see a characteristic in someone and then make it what we want it to be and be like, oh yeah, they probably would be a good dad or a good mom or a good whatever. When people show you who they are, believe them. They can only hide for so long. So this week, I want you to reflect on the relationships in your life. Are you attached to potential, or are you accepting people for who they truly are? If you're accepting them for who they are, you love who they are, you're okay with it, great. If you realize that you're attached to potential, you just might need to reevaluate. Remember, you can't change them. Realize that you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. No matter what you do, you can't change people until they want to change themselves. As always, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Millennials in Charge. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn your notifications on, rate, review, all the things. Slide into my DMs. Let me know if you think you're attached to potential, or if you are loving people for who they are. I mean, whatever it is, slide into my DMs. I'm a real person. I respond. And I just really want us to be mindful and cognizant of who we're dealing with, not just romantically, but platonically, professionally. because maybe you need to sever some of those relationships sooner than you realize. So y'all can comment and all the things. If y'all want to slide into my DMs, it is at Lex the Millennial and at Millennials in Charge. I'd love to hear from y'all. Let's keep unpacking this wild, crazy ride we call adulting together. I'll see y'all next time. Don't forget to catch Millennials in Charge every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern. You can tune in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. See y'all next week.